You follow this so closely. How much of a new development is this in terms of this new Israeli proposal?
Well, it's the very first time I've heard the President of the United States say it is time for this war to end, some 8 months into this extremely bloody conflict. It's also key the time of day, 1:45 here on the East Coast. It is well into the evening on a Friday night in Israel. For those observing, there will be restrictions on their ability to come out publicly and comment on this. There will also be, as we have seen in Israel, nearly every weekend of this conflict, protests against the Netanyahu government, urging them to bring home the hostages through diplomacy versus through war. But in terms of what the president laid out here today, he laid out this chessboard of here's the three phases to bring the hostages home. For the first time, he was linking a short-term pause of 6 weeks cessation in violence to a broader end to the conflict that he says the Israelis are open to at this point. We know the CIA director met with the head of Mossad just last Friday in Paris, then also said once we get to the end of this, we can talk about Israelis returning to their homes in the north of the country. This is a huge political issue back in Israel right now, because in that conflict with Hezbollah in North Lebanon, people have had to flee their homes and haven't been able to go back. And he also spoke to that broader promise to Benjamin Netanyahu, the embattled prime minister, and we might be able to get you a peace deal with Saudi Arabia. He is dangling a lot of carrots out there to a politically embattled leader and really gestured to the pressure that's on the Israeli prime minister from the far right of his party, saying there's some we know in your government who don't want this war to end.
But it also seemed very clear, too, that the president was laying out that Israel has come to a deal that was transmitted by the Qataris to Hamas, that this ball is now in Hamas's court, and that's where not only he wants the solution to be found or perhaps negotiated, but also, I think, to put the pressure back on Hamas in the eyes of the world.
Yes, he was doing that as Ed laid out there. Absolutely. I'm drawing the distinction between what the Israeli intelligence apparatus has been able to agree to with the United States versus the political decisions made by the prime minister. And sometimes those things have been in conflict, and Biden officials have been very frustrated with them.
And absent from the president's formal remarks was a direct reference to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, supporting this and carrying this forward under his auspices, even with a divided cabinet. This is a proposal. It is not a deal. And proposals, as Margaret and you and I know in the Middle East, live forever, but they are hard to achieve. Lots of proposals come and go in the Middle East.
With the U.S. for decades, leading the effort to bring peace to the world.
There are three phases to this, but there is only one practical phase. If this isn't agreed to as far as a cessation of hostility, withdrawing of Israeli forces, putting back of some of the hostages, there is no phase 2 and phase 3. And absent that declaration from the president that I've talked to Bibi Netanyahu, he supports this and we do this together, there is some curiosity I have about how devoted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is to this particular proposal, and if it is entirely in Hamas's hands to decide whether or not this becomes a deal, which transforms it from a proposal to something that both sides can work on.